The guests on our show tonight are Melissa Obrycki, Laura, and Bryan.
Come on, you can do it.
Hold on, don't tell me. Gawecki.
Very good.
Okay, they were tricking me here. So, and we have our special co-host, always my husband, Billy.
Good evening.
He's always special, right?
Yep.
And of course, we have Andy DeBala behind. Go ahead, say it. I know you want to.
The second most best looking man in the room.
They always have this little debate over who's best looking.
You know, Bryan is the best looking this evening. I'll settle in third place, second loser.
Anyways, we'd like to give a shout out to Liberty Sound Lab, and they are at 1671 West Stearns Road, Suite E, Temperance, Michigan. Okay, we are going to start with you, Miss Melissa. How are you tonight?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Good. So that video that we watched was from this morning, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you have to share a little bit of behind the scenes so people know what that video was.
Right, what was the video?
It was amazing.
Was it? Oh, okay. Speaking of amazing, sorry I have to interrupt. We have a special announcement. Go
Yes,
ahead.
we do.
We do.
Sorry, Melissa.
Sorry, Melissa.
My daughter had her little beautiful princess, Chloe Rose Bowden.
Yep.
Healthy, 7 pounds, 6 ounces, 19 inches long. And they are coming home tonight, so. Yay!
We're excited. We have a prince and a princess now.
Yes, we do.
All right, sorry about that.
That's
But-
absolutely.
So the video.
The video. So, tell us about your morning this morning, Melissa.
I was just in a good mood, and I posted a little thing on my Facebook that said, put your hair in a bun, drink some coffee, and put on some gangster rap, and I just kind of rocked it out this morning.
And she did. She put on some gangster rap, and she was drinking her coffee. The video was hysterical, so I'll be sure to share it on Warrior
Yeah, I was going to say,
Spotlight
where do we
later.
find it at?
Yeah.
Is it on Facebook?
It's under her name. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so the reason we brought you here today is because you've graciously served your country. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
Would you like to share what you've done and how it got started? And was there family members who were in the service before you? Take it.
So I served 4 years in the Navy. I do have three uncles, 2 on my paternal side, 1 on my maternal side that served in both the Navy and the Army. My brother is a Marine.
Currently serving?
No, he is since gotten out in 2015.
Okay.
But we were actually serving at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So I joined when I was 20 years old. Really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was kind of a little bit of a party girl for a bit, to be honest.
I guess if you're listening to gangster rap first thing in the morning, having a cup of coffee. Huh?
I mean, it wasn't like I didn't get in trouble or anything. But
It's okay. You can admit it here. It's all right.
You might have just didn't get caught.
Correct. I did not get caught.
There we go.
So I decided pretty quickly I was going to join the Navy. Kind of like was a kissing ship, they called me.
Why the Navy?
So I knew I really wasn't cut out to do the Marines. I mean,
Was your brother in first?
no, I was in first.
Okay.
But I actually got a D in gym. I don't have much agility. I can do push-ups, sit-ups, and run, which was why I was like, I probably can't climb ropes and stuff like that in the Marine Corps. But, and I did go and interview with the Air Force, and they kind of just wanted to talk about them, whereas the Navy actually wanted to talk about me and how it could benefit me. So I was kind of sold. Really didn't think much about it. I gave my recruiter 2 options that I wanted to do, whether it was military police or corpsman, and they were able to get me a job within like less than a month. And I remember I came home late September after I took my ASVAB, and I told my dad, yeah, I'm going to join the Navy. He's like, okay. And so I was like, no, I'm literally like shipping out October 26th. I was like, okay. And so, I did. And I did 4 years.
What were his thoughts when you left? When you were really leaving?
I don't know if they thought I could do it. I think that they were, kind of curious because, again, I got a D in gym. So, but I mean, again, they always say in the Navy you just have to run 3 miles a year. So
You got to know how to swim, don't you?
yes, I did know how to swim beforehand, so
Okay. Good.
that wasn't hard. They just
Yeah.
pushed you off of a diving board or a fake cliff, and you just swam. I don't know.
When your life depends on it, you learn how to swim.
But
pretty
yes,
quick.
I mean, obviously, if it was man overboard,
I gotcha.
it'd be a little different. But
But when you said you didn't like gym, I mean, there's a lot of effort that goes into swimming.
no,
I'm just messing with you. Go ahead with your story. I'm
it
sorry.
was I failed ping pong and bowling. Like, I don't know how. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. Squirrel.
See?
Squirrel.
Okay, stop.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Focus.
But I, got through boot camp. Went on to my first command.
Share your experience. We're going to slow the story down a little bit. Share your experience of your first night of boot camp. Was it everything you were dreaming it would be?
No. It's like they're called P days for a reason, and they're like, I don't know. No, they're not. It was literally just sitting around waiting for a bunch of people to like come in and like doing a bunch of paperwork and walking in circles and having to stand on squares waiting to pee, like up all night, being given different clothing, things that we had to wear, waiting to get shots the next day, like. But we were up all night, so we rode in on a bus. We took a flight. Actually, this was my first time ever flying. Was out of Detroit Metro Airport into Chicago, O'Hara, and never flew before. But I went a nice.
Is that where your training
hour
was
and a
at? Was in Chicago?
Yes, Great Lakes.
Oh, okay.
I was going to ask that, yeah, where the Navy base or basic training was.
Great mistakes.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
She
What's that?
said great mistakes.
That's what they call it. No.
But it was up on the. Which lake is that over there? Lake Superior? Lake Michigan?
Lake Michigan.
Lake Michigan. I got you. Okay.
Okay, proceed. I'm sorry.
I actually came in earlier in that sequence, so I was actually in P days for 10 days. So they were waiting for 10 different divisions to all line up and get into their, racks and everything. And then we actually started our actual boot camp. So I was there 10 days before everybody else was. So P days was long. But I don't think that very many people get the chance to have the weekend off when they graduate boot camp, because we graduated boot camp December 30th. And because it was a holiday, we were granted liberty over the 31st and the 1st, which is really rare. So I actually was not in boot camp. I got liberty with my parents
nice.
for New Year's that year, which was
Nice.
kind of cool.
So what was your job?
I was a Master at Arms, which is the equivalency to a military police officer. in the Navy.
Okay. And how long was that training?
A school was 8 weeks in Lackland Air Force Base.
Okay, I'm going to break this down for people who, because there are civilians who watch. So what is A school?
A school is like your training for whatever rate and job you are.
Okay.
So in the Navy, there's a rate and a rank, and
Okay.
you put your rate with your rank when you rank up. So I was at the end. I was an MA3, which was an E4, third class petty officer.
Okay. So tell us about your schooling, what that was like.
So it was 8 weeks. I actually got set back in my schooling because I got strep throat during our weapons qual. So you start with your class. We did like 2 or 3 weeks of book work, and we did patrol work. 2 or 3 weeks of weapons, and then the last couple weeks were tests. Of course, PT was in there. And basically towards the end was when we started to pick our actual duty stations. Depending on how high you qualled in your tests, your weapons, your PT was also going to further determine where you were going to maybe go moving on for your duty station. Mm-hmm. So, and I was never a super overachiever. I made sure I did my run and my push-ups and my sit-ups. But at the end, I did wind up getting set back a week because I got strep throat, which was horrible. First time I've ever had strep throat that was that bad, and I had to go into the Air Force hospital base and everything.
Right.
But that base is nice. Air Force girl.
I know, I do hear that our bases are nice. My daughter in the Army tells me all the time. So what was it like training to be a military police officer as a female?
You're in a man's world to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So then you put some weapons on your body, and then you try to engage with people and demand respect. It can be hard.
Mm-hmm. How many females did you have in your? Is it called a squadron, a flight? What is it called?
A school is like our division.
Okay.
A school was actually probably the most that I had females integrated with me. I would say probably a third of the class. Because actually that's probably one of the more predominant female-oriented jobs outside of corpsmen in the Navy that, or legal men or yeomen, that have more females. As I went on to my next, duty station, there was minimal females because of the intensity of the type of command it was.
So where was your first duty station? I'm sorry, what did you say?
So I'm sorry, A school just had a third of the females, but then when I went to my first
And that
command,
was in Chicago.
No, A school was in Great Lakes.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Boot camp was in Chicago, Great Lakes. A school was in Lackland Air Force Base.
Oh, okay.
But then I did what was called two C schools. So I was part of a Mesron mobile security squadron that was actually assigned to San Diego. It was a embarked security team squadron that was detached out of Bahrain, Middle East. So I had to first go through 4 weeks of expeditionary combat school, which was in Gulfport, Mississippi. And then I went from there to our command in San Diego, which was based at a NAS San Diego, where basically I was stationed on Coronado, Imperial Beach. And that's where we did our cruiser weapons. Well, ECS we did our combat first aid, our M4, our 9 and our M4 is what we qualified on those. And then like field med. And that was just a 4-week, really intense. Like we were out like 6 of the 7 days doing stuff, qualifying on things.
Mm-hmm.
But then once we went to San Diego, that's when we did our cruiser weapons, because my primary weapon out in Bahrain was a 50 cal. So we did 50 cal, 240, 203 grenade launcher, and we carried an M9, M4, and then we had a shotgun. So I had, had to have 6 qualifications at that time to even just go overseas to be combat ready, I guess.
So how was it shooting 50 cal?
It was fun.
Was it? I bet.
Yeah. My chief actually called my dad. It was pretty cool. My dad got a phone call at work, and it's a tough machine gun to pull back in general, and you don't have a stand when you call on it. You don't have it up actually mounted. So it's on the ground, so I'm just full on like using all my weight, feet up there. And it was tough, but I did it, and again, I was at that time one of probably 10 or 12 females.
Right.
And my chief called my dad. He asked me for his number a while back, and I was like, okay. And he called him, and he said, I just want to let you know that your daughter qualified on the 50 cal today, and she did a great job. And my dad said it was the most coolest.
So as these shotguns, was he up on knowing what they were? Or did he hunt?
He hunts and stuff.
Oh, okay. That's what I'm saying. Because some people don't realize how big a gun that is, let alone what it shoots and kicks and all that. Right.
So he knew. He just was like. So he got off the phone and he told because he's a tool and die maker. So he was in the shop and he told all his
Sure.
coworkers
Should be proud,
like,
right?
yeah,
That's
my
cool.
daughter qualified.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was cool.
Well, shoot, we're proud of you. That's not no little gun, huh?
No.
You know what I mean, right? Freaking big bullets.
I'm not qualified.
Huh?
You're like, I'm not qualified.
I know.
So tell us, We'll start with what was your favorite deployment that you went on? Did you have a favorite deployment or stateside duty that you did?
My last command, I actually worked at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, and I actually enjoyed working there. I became a BLS instructor. I did some
What's BLS?
basic life support.
Okay.
That's what you did at Reed?
Yeah, extra.
Extra.
Because I was doing basically base security, so I was
Oh,
gate
that's
guard.
what I was- okay.
Gate guard.
Right.
I did start doing some.
I know
patrol.
somebody just went there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the president.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was part
Sorry.
of- well, no. This is a good transition.
Yeah.
I was
okay, see?
I was on part of Michelle Obama's personal detail there.
Really?
She went in
Oh,
for her
that's
breast
cool.
cancer awareness. So a lot of us were posted up kind of where she was at in the hospital and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And
That's cool.
it was pretty cool. She
For the
picked-
first lady, you had personal detail. That's awesome.
I mean, it wasn't like Secret Service personal
No,
detail,
but
like
still, yeah.
the actual hallways
Right.
and stuff like that.
Sure.
Sure.
You had to
Sure.
watch out for her. I mean, that's a big responsibility, let alone, right? Yeah. With no rock star or nothing, it was the first lady. Or, okay, I'll shut up. Screw up. Sorry. Could have went down a rabbit hole there for a minute.
Okay,
Sorry,
let's
folks.
stop. That's not what we're doing.
No. Well, I mean, that's a big deal to be the first lady.
Yes, it is.
It was cool.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We also went to the inaugurational ball that year,
Oh.
separate from the one that super like it's called private. There's two,
Mm-hmm.
but we
You were
got
security for that?
no.
Oh.
I was guest there. I
Oh,
had tickets
wow.
as a guest there.
I gotcha. So you get to party.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool. Alicia Keys was there. Brad Paisley was there.
Oh, wow.
The president too, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So why did you get to go to that, though? I mean, what was your invite from?
I got temporary assigned duty while I was at NSA Bethesda to
Mm-hmm.
work at the Washington Navy Yard.
Mm.
And the Navy Yard's right downtown DC. Lots of important people in and out of the gate. And they had like 30 tickets available for the base. And
You got
I
one?
got one. I actually got
Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
two. It's cool.
Okay, now tell us, do you have like a, man, I wish I didn't have to go there type of deployment? Or,
I mean, I think anybody that has deployed probably has one of those. Without getting into too much of the reasons why I didn't want to be out there, I definitely had. Our missions were interesting because we were embarked security teams, so we had 12-man teams. We were on board. They were Coast Guard contracted or civilian contracted maritime ships. So they would either be doing like oceanographic missions back and forth on the Central Arabian Gulf, or we'd be transporting, supplies up to Kuwait, down through the Straits of Hormuz, around up to the Suez Canal and stuff like that. So it was Middle Eastern waters, and we weren't on board Navy vessels, but we were still protecting we were still protecting U.S. territory, I guess you could say. So each ship had a different mission, and that's why we had ECS or Expeditionary Combat School, because some missions were boots on ground. So some of the guys, because it depended on what ship you were on, only females could go on ships that had staterooms because of the birthing situation. But a lot of the guys wound up doing some boots on ground where they had to actually go touchdown in Kuwait and stuff like that. But majority of the ships that I were on were the supply ships. I didn't have to go on very many oilers, which was nice because those are rough. And then
Oilers. I mean, like hauling oil.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yep.
Right? Tankers.
Yep. And I was on, the Bruce Heason, which was a oceanographic ship. But basically, we stood, watched 12-man teams, bow and aft. Anybody that was threatening U.S., territory, we were, given SOPs to engage per our tech soup.
Right.
And,
Sure. You were protecting our interests. Yeah, that's cool.
So it was, 14-hour shifts, looking straight at the water. Depending on the mission, sometimes you'd be out 3, 6, months at most. You'd spend about 30 days in garrison back in Bahrain, and then you'd go back out again. So, there's a couple, deployments that were rough. Just being out there when you're trying to handle things and deal with things, and the water will have you seeing things and thinking things. Even if you don't want to.
You never got sick? I mean, you were...
With those smaller type ships, there is a lot more rocking.
Sure.
I know before we left, they gave us all these little, things that you can put behind your ears and stuff like that, but I actually did pretty well.
Really?
Some people didn't. But
I was going to ask that. Yeah, that's thinking you want to go in the Navy. You know what I mean? That's a big. A lot of people can get motion sickness and stuff. That,
So here's what we tell people on the show, and you were a guest on our radio show, and this has far more viewers than what our radio show did. And so we want to be able to connect with other veterans. We want to be able to, a veteran that is sitting at home saying, I'm the only person going through this, and they have no idea, right? So this is a space where you can share as much or as little as you want to, right? Because the whole goal of this is to let other veterans know that they aren't alone, right? We are a resource for them.
Okay.
That they are not struggling, that their spouses are not struggling alone. We are that resource for them.
we're here for them.
Yes. That's why we started this podcast, so we can reach those viewers. And we've had amazing success with this so far. So our shows have been reached as many as 9,000 people so far. And that's great for, I think we're on show 8 or something, right? So I just want to paint that picture for you to know that this is your time, your opportunity to share what you want to share, and however you want to connect, or share as little as you want to share. Okay?
That being said, not only at my first command, but my second command, and my third TAD command, I had 3 separate incidences that definitely I did not address at the time when I got out of service. One being the active shooter at the Navy Yard. It was my last day in the Navy, interesting enough. But what I will say is...
So you were at that base when that happened?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
What I will say is that even if you don't talk about it, or you've not talked about it, and it's been, say, 6 or 7 years, in my instance, you will not begin to heal until you talk about it. I wanted to have the mentality when I got out of the hometown hero. A couple things that happened to me I felt would paint me as a victim versus the hometown hero.
Right.
I didn't want to come home and people feel like I wasn't successful, even though I was successful. So I kind of kept those things to myself. It wasn't until years down the road, after having a baby, after trying to engage in a marriage that wasn't just about myself, that I had to be honest with myself, or I was never going to heal. I was 29 when I talked about what happened to me. I finally told another service member what happened to me, and I started therapy, and I, balls to the walls, hit therapy running, and I didn't want to not get better, but I could see myself kind of spiraling, not being able to deal with certain things. My behaviors were a certain way, and it wasn't something that I didn't want to fix. I just didn't know how to fix it because I didn't know how to talk about the feelings, because a lot of the things that happened were emotionally driven. And once you're back dealing with something else later on, and you're feeling those same emotions, you're wondering why your blood pressure's going, why you're seeing, what I call the birds, why you are anxious.
So when you're seeing the birds, maybe somebody's feels that same way or sees that when you say you see the birds?
It's blood pressure. So you know how you get like squigglies?
Sprinklers? Okay, right, sure.
I always saw them as birds.
You call them as birds. Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
And I couldn't explain it for a while. I kept saying,
Right.
why do I see these birds?
Mhm.
You know, I kept thinking maybe am I like seeing stuff? But it was just the squigglies I'd get when
Yeah,
my
it's
blood
from your
pressure
blood
was
pressure.
rising.
Mine would do the same thing.
So I want to intervene here.
I never
So
called
people say all the time, right? Do you guys help veterans with PTSD, right? I personally, I know it's a word, right? It's like the chosen word for some reason. And I always explain it, and I will always explain it this way. It's not, PTSD is 4 letters. We take it very seriously, but there's so much more to veterans than PTSD. It's a compounding thing. So it starts when you go through basic training and they're forever changing who you are. You go from an I to a we, right? And then you incur other things, and it's not just combat trauma, right?
Correct.
So it's vital that people, our veterans that we can connect with, know that it's a real thing,
It is.
right? It is real. We don't claim to have all of the answers at Little Blessings. We don't claim that we're magically going to cure anybody, right? But what we do say is we're a family, and we try to create community of other people who understand,
Correct.
similar circumstances, right? So we speak the same language, we have some of the same understandings, right? So that's what we have to offer, right? You have that shoulder that somebody could approach you and go, I know exactly what you went through, right? So
Interesting enough, I did go through EMDR therapy before I actually started some of the equine therapy. But the EMDR therapy actually helped organize the actual emotions associated to the event, and I was able to remember it, validate it, feel at peace with the validation, and actually feel all that intensely and then let it go. Because for a while I couldn't handle what my body was feeling. Afterwards, completing that type of therapy, I then moved on to CBT therapy. And when I'm actually in a pause right now with the Veterans Equine Therapy. I did start it here at Little Blessings. I'm just taking a pause at this time due to some, personal stuff going on. But when I started the therapy program here at Little Blessings, total different type of therapy than what I was going through. EMDR is intense. CBT is just owning up to your own crap and talking about your behaviors and what you could do better. This type of therapy is, you don't have to talk. You observe and you observe and you're allowed to take in, and you can let anything be metaphorically to what you've dealt with, but you'll learn how to react better. And you can't explain unless you've actually done it, but this type of therapy is like the top. For me it's the least hardest that I had to go through yet. And haven't completed it, and I
there's some difficult stages in it.
There is.
We will tell you that, right? We will tell you that. So we don't sugarcoat the stuff either.
Right.
So, and another bonus is that you'll always have a home to be at.
Correct.
Right? So in traditional therapy, you do your 6 weeks, you do your 12 weeks, and they're like, call us if you need us, right?
Right.
And here, this is something that we offer you as a home, right? And your family as a home with a wide variety of things. So it's not just about you. It's about your support system. It's about your family, right? So
Yeah, because it affects us all. I mean, like you say, the children, your spouse, everything. It really does. Even though you might not know it, but it does, and that's.
It does.
So if you had to say something to another, specifically female that was sitting out there, right? And I know there are males that encounter all sorts of, whether it's combat trauma, sexual trauma, just alike, right? But we're talking, females in the Navy, right? So that in the statistics alone, right? In a male-dominated world, out to sea, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're either one of the guys or you're not, right? So
I would say that you just need to hold your own the best that you can. And
if they're at home right now watching,
Right, and they are. Yeah, somebody.
if you think that you've gone through something, you may have. There's other people that have gone through it, or other females that have gone through it, and you just have to talk. You have to talk. You just have to talk. If you hold it in and you keep it in, it's gonna ruin it. It will ruin things later in your life. Like, it will affect you down the road. Hopefully not too soon or not too late, but sometimes it is too late. You just gotta find somebody. Hopefully you have a female. If I always say that if Jamie was in charge of me, if I had met her, I probably would have been a 25 career veteran as well, because there's minimal females that can make that level and be respected for not only, doing the right thing, but also just feeling comfortable enough to talk to. If I'd had somebody like her where I was at, I probably wouldn't have. Probably still be in.
Right, because trust, it's the biggest thing too, I think. It's especially, in a woman in certain situations like that, it's hard to trust somebody and to, talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the whole program is connecting, letting people know and connecting and, yeah.
and I was messaging with another veteran this morning, right? And we have a mutual veteran friend, right? And I been out since 2017, right? And it's been a transition, and I'm in a much better space now than where I was, right? But the biggest piece that I have to reflect on is, and this is where so many veterans are at right now, is that I felt so broken. Broken is the best way to describe when you get out of the military, right? And I felt so broken, and I know the VA tries to do their best, right? But you're just so focused on all your broken pieces, right? There's no even opportunity to go, wait a minute. There's some good qualities in there. I'm a good person. Let's find those. The military spent a lot of money on me on education and leadership, right? But it took me a long time to figure that out again, right? And so, because we are so concentrated on what's broken, and, when these veterans are, you're young. How old are you?
I just turned 31.
31. So you're young, so you could either choose to be broken, right? Or choose to move forward, right? Now, and I don't say that lightly either, by any stretch of the imagination. It is a journey for sure. That's why our therapy program is a year long, because it's not going to happen in 6 weeks, right? And at the end of the year, right, you have a stronger foundation, you have a bigger family component, right? You have more tools in your toolbox. That's what you have at the end of that journey, right? And so, and then you get to discover those pieces, those bright lights that, make the people around you smile and shine. And what do you do for a living?
I'm a probation officer.
That's pretty cool.
Where at? In Michigan, or?
Here through the 1st District Court in Monroe County.
That's cool.
I did use my GI Bill to its max. I think I got a couple months left, but I knew when you get out, one of the things too is that you feel like you don't have purpose, and I knew I wanted to do something bigger than counting money. I'm sorry if anybody counts money in here or there.
I like to count money. When it's coming in.
I just
yeah.
To count.
When it's coming in, I don't like to count it when it's going out.
We know what you mean.
It's always something different every day, and you can relate to everybody, whether you believe it or not, because everybody goes through crap. They do. Sometimes, when you're on probation, it's because you have, unrelated trauma that you haven't dealt with the correct way, and you're either using substance abuse, or you're just around the wrong people. But everybody needs somebody. And I guess that kind of ties into what I wanted to really 100% say about everything is that you got to find a partner, a person that can understand what you're going through, that wants to understand, that wants to trust you and know that this is real. Because if you don't, it can be even harder. So, you talk about broken, you talk about moving forward, that's exactly what I did when I got out. And here it is, 6 years later. And I met my husband the year I got out. And 6 years later, I did move forward. But because of PTSD and because of things, like now we're getting a divorce. So it's like I'm breaking all over again because I dealt with all of that partially or attempting to be partially with him. And if your significant other, your spouse doesn't understand it, if they don't want to understand it, if they don't want to learn, if they, I don't know, I can't speak for the spouse, but it's important to find somebody that wants to hear you, so.
Yeah, the spouse this is like an amazing segue to switch to our next guest, right? And so that's why we do what we do too with the spouses, right? The spouses are very important to us, right? And that was something I didn't recognize until not long ago, right? Listening to the stories of the spouses and understanding the stuff that they're experiencing, including him, right? So when
I'm the spouse.
Yes, you're the spouse, right? And so, but me moving forward with where I was at, right? I didn't see what he saw, but listening to these other spouses, the words that they speak, I know would come perfectly out of his mouth, right? I know he would say those things, right? And I was like, I realized how crappy it is, right? I can't undo it. I can do stuff to move forward, but I can't. To listen to what Miss Laura has to say and Bryan has to say. And so we welcome Bryan and Laura.
Hi there.
Hi there.
I started watering as soon as it came on.
Yeah.
Can you guys do me a favor and switch seats so you guys are closer to the mic?
Oh, sure.
Your eyes started watering, as in what, sir? What'd you say?
It's just stuff.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Just stuff, Billy.
Good
Just
to
stuff.
know. Hey,
I'm
Are you pushing me over?
Yeah, I'm wanting to go over more. I'm an emotional person. I
No,
still
I
get
know.
really emotional.
Yep, me too.
I'm a hugger. I just want to hug you.
Okay, Bryan, let's start with
Yeah.
tell us your story. Tell us why you joined the military, what that looks like. Let's start there.
Okay.
What branch you were in.
Well, I'm finally happy to be here for one thing. I've been wanting to be here for a long time with you guys. I graduated from Bedford in 1992. I was very athletic in their wrestling program, Bedford wrestling and baseball. I played my whole life. And I went into the Marine Corps in 1994, so 2 years after I graduated high school.
And you chose the Marines because?
I've been asked it a few times, and I try to look back on it, and to be honest, I think it's because my younger brother was in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And he came home on his leave, and we were the party type as well. Like, that's all we ever did. And he was gone passed out or something, and I put on his Dress Blues.
Oh,
Right. And I was like, wow, check this out.
I'm looking good.
And that's like the only, and combined with a couple of other things, doing the party thing, my mom gave me an ultimatum basically, and just taking care of me. You need to get a job or continue going to school, because I stopped going to the University of Toledo. I was drinking and having fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that combination like that, and I did it.
And what did you do in the military, in the Marines?
I was a combat engineer.
And that means what?
And combat engineer, when I went into the recruiting station, they tell you one thing, and then when you get to it, it's something.
No.
They're amazing sales
Aren't they
people.
awesome? Yeah.
I'm learning the recruiting stories.
Pay attention to this one.
They get special ribbons and stuff for doing that.
The one guys got in the car and they were like, the guy said, "I don't like to talk or listen."
I
to
saw
it."
that.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, where was that?
You were getting recruited because you drank too much.
What did they tell you that was totally different?
My mind's like blank.
What did they tell you?
Combat engineer. You were.
What did they
combat
tell you?
engineer
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. What is a
Okay.
combat engineer?
Well, they told me that it was like building stuff. So I hammered nails and did stuff like that. I'm like, I could build stuff. I'm like, cool. I'm all right with that. I wasn't about to go, as a infantry. I just I think I wanted to wear that uniform. I really do.
You signed up to engineer combat.
Yeah, engineer combat, right?
Combat engineer, right?
So I did do that, and you
Right.
had to run a mile and a half just to be eligible, I guess you could say. You had to do
Sure.
a certain amount of, I think it was 3 pull-ups, certain amount of sit-ups, but you had to run a mile and a half, and man, I didn't
Thought
run.
you were athletic.
But I didn't run. I wrestled and played baseball.
Oh,
I didn't play track
Them
or
bases
nothing
aren't
like
very
that.
far.
Yeah,
I got you.
right.
Okay.
Right. You didn't do much.
Well,
You just
all
use
right.
your strength. So I failed my first one. I ran about a mile, and I think we were out partying and stuff. And I leaned over the bridge and
Just let it rip.
let it rip right in front of the recruiter. And he said,
Sounds like
"Come back
both-
next
you
week."
Both had the problem. She didn't like gym class, and you were, yeah.
Right.
So go ahead.
So I came back the next week, and I made sure I was all right. And
Party.
right, and you have to run a mile and a half within a certain amount of time, and I beat that time. So then, you put your name on a million different pieces of paper, and you go down to Detroit and thinking I know,
Oh, wait a minute.
think it's going to be one way, and it comes out completely different. I saw Joel's little interview, and I did that little because I was thinking about when I got to the airport. You never thought there'd be drill instructors at an airport. Woo!
They're waiting on you.
We're always
they
pleasant,
wait there, man.
We're always pleasantly surprised.
And it's
who's
like,
waiting
whoa.
for us. Yeah.
Whoa! What? Whoa! You don't even know what to say. Like holy mackerel.
Like you're riding a horse. Whoa.
Yeah, it was something. It was an eye opener, that's for sure. At Paris Island,
Yeah. That was cool.
November. I was there. November, December, and January. So I was there doing the good months.
Mm-hmm.
Being away from home for the first time was my first flight too ever in my life. So I had Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all of it.
I'm sure that's a lot of cases though for young
Sure, yeah,
people.
I would imagine,
Never
yeah.
flew. Huh?
And it's still stuff I think about.
Sure.
Being there on Christmas and just the things you do in boot camp. It was Christmas Day. We got lucky. We got to watch a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But we got to watch it backwards, and they brought in a little TV, and we got to use our little our sewing mirror, and we got to watch it backwards in our underwear through our sewing mirror.
What's that about?
And we watched the
Yeah.
movie Sniper.
Yeah.
Why do you say yeah? Did you have to do that too?
No, it's just
No, I mean,
No,
like,
but
you
I
say
mean,
backwards.
It's
because
the
they're the
game.
most ridiculous things that they make you do in the military.
Oh.
Right?
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
gullible. I didn't know.
So we were all happy. They were like, "You guys just watch a movie today." We're like, "Wow."
Yeah.
Because we didn't
Right.
go anywhere or anything
Right.
like that, and you're not allowed to chew gum. You can't chew candy.
Sure.
You can't do that kind of
So
stuff.
as
You can't-
we're
no sugar.
approaching the holiday season, think about
Yeah.
those
Don't
in-service
recruit
members.
yourself then.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
think about those in-service members that will
I
be
do
there
all
over the
time.
holidays,
I
right?
do, right.
Yeah.
And I think about them sitting backwards,
Right.
on TV in their underwear, and halfway, and when I'm watching, I'm thinking, "Wow, this is awesome." And then, at the second hand, what the hell am I doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Signed up for
Watching,
it.
the
Right.
mirror was this big.
So how long were you in the service?
4 years, 1994 to 1998.
And did you serve overseas?
I did, yes.
And where did you serve?
I served on ship in expeditionary unit, and I served around the area of Bosnia during the back end of it, where you kind of really don't know what you're doing. You kind of get told and you do it, But you find out years later what it was. At least that's what it was for me.
What was your mission?
We circled the waters and made sure that there was no, enemies, and just kind of making sure everything was okay for Bosnia, And to this day, we were just circled the seas, around the patrolling. I don't know the exact names of it. Policing, yeah, policing.
Yeah.
We did call us the police force. I was in during Bill Clinton, and we always said we were the police force of different countries. They would dial 911, and we would
Right.
go in there.
And what was your experience like?
Up until that time, it was like actually a really good time. My first deployment, I went to the island of St. Kitts. I don't know if you know that. It's in the West Indies. It's one of the last islands in the West Indies. St. Thomas, St. Croix, then way out there you got St. Kitts. It's very small. I believe it's only around 25 miles long and around 8 or 10 miles wide, so it's not very big. And our purpose there was to build a maintenance facility and a juvenile delinquents home for their kids, but a maintenance facility for their Army/military because they were combined together. Mm-hmm. And that was my first sample of really the Marine Corps and the maybe you shouldn't always believe what you're told kind of thing, because we were there for 3 months, and while we were there, we just happened to bust the biggest drug dealer in the West Indies. And they seized all his cars, and we slept in the ambassador's backyard in CP tents. So, but we were going, it was like a regular job. We were 9 to 5, and then we could go out on the island, and we had the weekends off. So I was like, this is awesome, man. I'm on an island overlooking the Mediterranean, having a good time. And then all of a sudden, we bust this guy. We throw all of his high-end vehicles right behind us. We're sleeping next to him. We have all these dogs, and there's just, the next morning, there's stuff painting all over the walls. Marines go home, and we're just like, whoa, what the heck happened? So, over the course of the years, you kind of realize, why were we really there? Mm-hmm. We did pitch in on a $250,000 Butler building for their maintenance facility, but we did also catch one of the biggest drug dealers in the West Indies. Mm-hmm. So
then how long have you been out?
I've been out. I got it in 1998, so over 20 years. Yeah, and it's just been a roller coaster, Deployment, that was my first deployment, and then I was on a Marine Expedition Unit, and that's when I was on ship, and I went to Bosnia and Africa and Albania, and that's where I set, boots on the ground in Africa, and actually got to see, I guess, third world type culture, I guess, if you want to call it that. And that's the stuff that I work on now with doctors, and I had a really hard time with after I got out of the Marine Corps, was just the poverty, and I guess how people take things for granted. I would get really mad if I saw a really nice car cutting off traffic. I would make sure that I would cut him off.
Oh.
I would do things.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
In my head, I'm thinking, this guy has no idea. He may be late for work, but he doesn't know what's going on. These kids in Africa, where I was in the Congo.
So you brought it with you.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
You brought it with you.
When I did bring it with me and I got out, I covered it with drugs and alcohol for at least a decade.
And how common is that?
Oh, I would imagine it's very common, and I've learned over the course of at least the last 10 years in my 30s and 40s that it's more common than I originally thought.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Self-medicating, yeah.
Sure.
And tell them how we met.
Oh, boy. Well,
My mom.
a year ago at this time, I was an inpatient at a hospital at Battle Creek. And I was there over the course of October and November, and I was just there in a PTSD clinic, and I was just having a lot of anger problems, and I was constantly doing therapy up in Ann Arbor. There wasn't a time where I stopped, but it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough, So I admitted myself, and I was on the back end of that.
Easy, dude.
I was on the back end of that. You all right?
Yeah. Man down.
We just had a
Man
man
down, for
Stand
sure.
by.
We got
Okay.
technical difficulties in with our
Okay.
technician.
Please,
Right.
go ahead.
Well, after I was not even finished with my therapy in Battle Creek, and I needed something for when I got out, because it was working. Whatever was happening was working. The type of schedule, being on a schedule, not isolating yourself, just doing all that stuff, it was working. So my wife, or her mother, I can't remember, I don't
mom.
know, I was in a hospital at that time, got a hold of.
No, my mom read it in the newspaper,
Oh.
and she called me up, and she's like, "You got to read this. I think it's near you guys. Maybe this would be maybe this would work." And so I'm like, okay, so I know you were in Africa and a horse bit you. Are you okay to work with horses? Because that's all I knew that he knew about
The horse
horses.
incident was actually in St. Kitts.
Was it?
Yeah, it was my
I was like, there's
first.
somewhere you had a horse.
It was one of our
experience.
weekends, and they had horses you could go through the rainforest, and I'm like, all right, I had a lot of beer, and I'm like, let's hop on it. And it just took off on me, and I'm like, never again, and
Yeah.
they tried to bite me, and that was
I'm
quite.
sure it had nothing to do with the beer.
Oh, not at all. Over there, it was pineapple juice and rum,
Right.
because we had to live the moment. We were on the beach.
Right. That's so funny.
So I asked him, I was like, well, what do you think? I said, when you come home, will you, and then I called you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, yeah, I'd like to meet him. So like when he came home, it was the very next day, wasn't it? Or that day? Was it that
I
day
think
or
I
the
visited.
next day?
I visited the farm because the first few weeks at the hospital, it's very intense.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not even allowed to leave. I mean, we take drug and alcohol tests all the way
That's
up until the
right.
day we leave.
Yeah.
You can't leave. So, I mean, you're on a strict schedule hour by hour. You have to be up at a certain time, and they're constantly doing community type activities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I forget where I go a lot when I talk.
No, I know what you're saying. So it was your first leave and only leave. You had to
Right.
go. You came back.
So I got
For
to
2
leave.
days.
I got to leave for 2 days.
Yeah.
Kind of like a 48-hour pass.
Mm-hmm.
And
And then we met you, and then he went back.
Yes.
And I was like, he can't start yet. But then when he went back, he went right into it. And I thought I was so
Yeah.
proud.
So I'm actually in my 33rd, 34th, 35th week of equine therapy. And it started the day after I got done with
Yeah.
therapy from last year. So I haven't stopped.
Because why?
COVID. Oh, I
No,
mean,
not
not
COVID.
because
That's
no.
why.
COVID's everything. The reason.
No, that's why it wasn't the
No,
whole
we'll go a
year.
little bit deeper
We're
than that.
still doing
A little
it.
bit deeper than that.
You're right. COVID
good
could lead
one.
a lot of
Yeah.
us to
It
therapy.
made me so
it's
mad.
okay.
You don't understand
The
how
reason-
COVID almost messed this up for me.
Yeah.
It came
Yeah.
close,
It came real
The
close.
reason why I couldn't stop is because the best thing that, at least my favorite thing to do, and a lot of veterans that suffer from depression, anxiety, PTSD, whatever you want to call it, they have isolation issues, and they don't want to make people upset by the way they are, or they just don't want to be around people. And by staying by yourself, you're just satisfying everything, and it feels so good. It's like the best feeling in the world for the short term, And before going to doing this therapy, you don't know this. You just kind of say, well, this feels so good. And then the next thing you know, you're in there for 12, 13 hours a day, watching the news for 10 hours a day, and it goes, every day. It becomes an everyday thing.
It was actually before you went into Battle Creek. It was like he would sleep for almost 3 days. His mom would be like, "Wake him up! He needs to eat." I'm like, "I'm trying to wake him up."
And there's
He
times
won't
like
get
that.
up.
I still
Yeah.
happen, and it happened today. As a matter of fact, you just don't want to get out of bed, and you take on a lot of responsibility and stuff that pushed me over the edge before. That I'm thinking it's going to push me over the edge any second, but I'm using this PTSD
Yeah.
growth because it's an important word with PTSD. PTSD is just a 4-letter acronym, but
And I
the
could-
growth is an important thing out of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I don't mean to intervene, but this part of the story is so important, right?
Yeah.
So is where we talk about this with this family afterwards, right? So while you were you in for 6 weeks?
6 or 7 weeks.
6 or
yeah.
7 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And it was great for a minute, right? And then you realized you were getting ready to leave. And then
Yeah.
your anxiety started to grow,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so, and these are things that you've said that I just want
No,
people to
you're
know
right.
that this
Yeah.
is what he
It's
said.
reminding-
Oh, I know.
reminding
And so-
you of things.
Yeah.
And so your anxiety was growing, and your anxiety was growing because you were getting ready to leave the people that you were most comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the hardest thing that we have as veterans to do is to leave that environment of somebody who understands what is happening, right? And I will also state that one of the things as far as, a spouse and the isolation, right? So I don't ever want to justify our behavior. I just like to explain it a little bit, right? From somebody else's mindset. So the isolation is really a protective method, right? They really want to protect the people who are around them, when in fact it does the exact opposite, right? You're not protecting anybody, right? You're isolating, you're hurting yourself, you're hurting your other ones because you're not being involved with them, right? But you don't have those tools yet. You don't have all the tools yet. And you're right, there are good days and bad days, right? And to validate when bad days happen, right? I feel so blessed that I have not had one in a minute, right? But I can recall going through my therapy, like having like 10s, right? And wake up and all of a sudden I'm like at a negative 10, right? For no apparent reason. And I didn't understand how my brain was working like that. I had no concept of how can I be so happy and wake up and not even physically want to get out of bed? I don't understand it. So it's a real thing.
Right.
It is real.
The education part of the therapy, when I first got out of the Marine Corps, I'm going to go back a little bit. When I first got out of the Marine Corps and I experienced the things that I did in Africa and Albania, and what we did, we had to go through this training. They called it a special operations capable training, and our missions were mostly to save down pilots and to evacuate refugees and foreign nationals from embassies, and that's what we did. We didn't do the down pilot thing. Sean O'Grady was done by our unit, I think 4 months prior to that, I believe. He was that Air Force pilot that went down. He was done by the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, which was a unit I was with. The 3 operations I was involved in were all refugee stuff, and the things that come along with it. But when I got out, instead of going to the hospital and getting the help that I should have, I worked at a strip club, because there was more drinking and more going out and more partying. But I was 24 years old and I didn't even think anything of it. I thought, wow, I'm going to work at a strip club, cool, And it's just, I think the education of, I didn't even know anything about the VA. I didn't know what they did. I didn't even know what they did until 10 years ago. And they're talking, that's 2012. I didn't even think about it. And then when I finally did go there, I just choked up. I saw the veteran stuff, the Marine Corps and the Navy, and I lost it. They took me to the emergency room. And I was like, that's proof right there. I need some kind of help.
Yeah.
And I know I'm bouncing all around.
No, you're fine.
Right.
And this is exactly how it is, right? This is raw and real. This isn't an act. This is real emotions that are coming from real veterans and real veteran families.
So
this is how we're going to reach the veterans who are watching this, right?
Right. We don't need to be drinking and partying and getting out. They didn't have the Veteran Center. They didn't have you guys. And the VFWs and American Legions, they do their thing and everything. But at that time in the mid '90s, they were still the bar scene, and you go there, and that was fine. I did go there a couple times, but I also got messed up and drunk, and when I left there, I believe I did a lot of drugs, and and it should be just the opposite. It should be, hey man, I know how you feel, let's talk about it.
We're going to give you a chance too, Laura, but I do want to say it is a constant work in progress. So it was probably, I want to say, a month and a half ago, and starting into phase 3 for you. And it was your first session, which is EMDR in phase 3, right? You had texted me 20 minutes before your appointment and said, I'm not going to come. I need to go to the hospital, right?
Yeah, I was there.
So the things that we do, and I've watched him grow. I've watched him make leaps and bounds. I've seen the difference in his family, right? We've now become family, right? And so my job as your sister, right, was to make sure that you didn't take those steps backwards and that you knew that there was a support system, right?
Oh, and I came there, and it was awesome.
You went 20 minutes later, and then
that's what I needed.
Right.
I was just sitting in my room, isolating. Is all I was doing.
But you were ready to put yourself back in patient.
Right.
So
I was making every excuse that I can, and you understood that, and you're like,
That's
hey.
awesome.
And I was there.
Right. And I'm like, who wants to start over? You've made leaps and bounds, right? We're moving forward. So
it's so
and you
easy.
Went, and I was so proud of you. So proud of you.
It's just so easy just to stop and think about everything bad, and sometimes when you do so much, you feel like oh, what am I getting out of it? And sometimes you don't feel like you're getting anything out of it. But then one day, there might be like, oh, wow, I never felt this, or I haven't felt this long in so long. And it's because of this therapy. It's because of these walls you're breaking through.
And last week you guys were on vacation, right?
Yeah,
And-
it was. Yeah,
Well, not really
it was a vacation.
Right.
I call it a vacation
Right.
because I
That's it,
haven't
we
been.
were
I haven't been together with just her in 8 years and
Right.
over a 3-day span.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the pictures were beautiful. That's why I called it a
Thank you.
vacation.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Petoskey.
Your hair looked
But-
awesome in that one picture I was saying. How the sunlight and everything in that one photo of you.
Petoskey
Thank
and
you.
autumn
Yeah.
colors.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
But I
I
was
thought they were in
Thank you.
Tennessee.
But
I didn't
I-
realize they were in
Yeah, we're up
Michigan.
north.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was saying, you were like, oh, I can't wait to get back to therapy, right? Who says that?
I know.
Who says that?
I know. That,
Yeah, we're
you know, you mentioned that about the just the anxiety raising up about leaving from the hospital, and we take these huge long tests, 400 question tests, and then these doctors all get together and it
Right.
throws some chart together and it shows where you're at and how you've been doing, you know. And over the course, my anxiety, everything is going down slowly but surely, and then at the very last one, it shot up. So they wanted to know the reason why it shot up. I was leaving. And it was exactly what you were saying. You know, all these years of isolating and to strike up a conversation with somebody, come on. I don't do, I don't do that crap, you know? So, but to finally have buddies and friends and that I haven't had in 20 years was such a nice thing. And then to leave them, I was sad. I was sad to leave an inpatient facility. I would have never thought I would have said that.
they also
But I
ate a
was.
lot of ho-hos and
And when you're there, you feel safe too. There is
No,
an element
they
of
do.
you're safe because you can't get yourself in trouble.
There's a lot of
because-
addiction
yes.
there. A lot of addiction.
Yeah.
So I think the first week I was there, we went through $350 worth of Little Debbie's
like
Right,
no
yeah.
joke.
and coffee
Because
like crazy.
That sugar.
The sugar and the caffeine.
Yeah.
And you constantly they're just
Yeah.
you know. But by the end of the some guys there, some ladies there are there for 12 weeks. You know, they do the extra prolonged exposure therapy, which I did 15 weeks of at Ann Arbor. So that was the main reason why I just did 6 weeks, because I did 15 weeks of prolonged exposure therapy, and you know, I had a grasp of it. It's a matter of getting out and doing it.
Right.
You know?
But and the nice part is that you can use the farm in between, right? You come there
Yeah.
on your
And I've
non-therapy
done
days.
it many times within the last month or so. You know, I'll get in
Yeah.
arguments with her sometimes, and I'll feel like I'm flipping a lid and say things that I shouldn't be saying. You know, after the fact though, where I feel guilty, and
As you should.
instead of blowing up and doing it, I've left and gone to the farm, and that's helped me so much for sure.
Yeah.
So we want to give you an opportunity to share the insight of where you've seen his growth.
Should be interesting to hear.
From and we'll start within the Little Blessings program.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, when right before he went to Battle Creek, we had been through 2 different marriage counselors.
Yeah, the second one I took off. I slept. They were both in Ann
Yeah.
Arbor. I was like,
The
"Fuck
first one I
you.
took
I'm out
off.
of here. Open the door and left.
The first one I walked out on, so I mean, it was pretty bad. Yeah, I couldn't stop crying. I was like, I'm done. I'm out. But
It was a hard thing to do, but it was necessary.
It was, but it wasn't as helpful as Little Blessings.
No,
And
yes.
absolutely not. And the first one I went to, so like, I don't want to knock the VA because, as you know, this is many people's only resource.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and it's
We
a great
support it,
resource.
right.
I support them. However, I feel like there's a lot of different opinions up there. You're gonna get different ones with different people. With Little Blessings, it's like there's a continuation afterwards. Like, I would watch him do like an 8-week program, and because there's this huge book that he had to choose from with his therapist on what he was going to do next, and I'd be like, what are you doing next? And I would get so excited because it would look like something would just start to work, and all of a sudden, well, we're done with the 8 weeks, we're ready to go. And I'm like, wait, what the hell? I'm like he's doing good in this program. Keep him.
Yeah.
I'm like, please, anybody keep
Switch
him.
him up. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really hard on me because I didn't understand their mentality. It was always like switch, 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 switch. There's no consistency. And I feel like it's not like with a kid, but with any person that's learning something new, and I'm learning that in school, like you have to develop different patterns in your brain of thinking, different thought patterns, and that takes repetition. And I felt like he would just start something and all of a sudden, like they're throwing something else at him, he's not thinking about that. Now he's thinking about the new thing, and it was a constant switch. And
I'm going to intervene there too, though, but that's why we do the things that we do in 10-week increments.
Absolutely.
Right? Because it takes those 10 weeks to set that in, right? Because the first few weeks is really just trying to get comfortable in your environment, right?
Right.
Trusting the other person on the other end of that lead line. And so that's why it's 10 weeks. And it flows from one into the next. Is how it
and
works.
he could go to the farm and feel those emotions and still engage in those feelings and thought patterns and stuff at the farm. It just doesn't end. Like, even if he's in the next therapy part, he can still go back and be with the animals at the first part. Like, I feel like that's necessary. You can't just continually, these blocks of service, but they're amazing blocks of service, but then they're shut off. And so as an outsider looking in, you're like, well, where's our voice? I mean, we're seeing what good it's doing, and then you don't even care like that. We're like, whoa, like this obviously is working. He's like, oh, I learned that. I'm like, oh, you did you? All right, next.
Quiet now.
Okay, you're learning a lot. But so now I feel like with Little Blessings, it's like sticking more. It's he doesn't spend his days in his room. Like I had said before, he went to Battle Creek. When he went to Battle Creek, it was almost like a reboot. And then he came back, and he was so excited and nervous and scared, and you can tell. His biggest motivation was our daughter, which was awesome. I can't ask for a better father to her. Like, the love he has for her is unbelievable. And a gift. It really is, because, I have a stepfather who I love dearly, and I met him at 8, and my daughter's 8. But before that, I never had someone who loved me. And he loves her, and she loves him. And I see him... There were so many hard times he would have. Like, he want to engage with her, and he would put everything he had in her. But then there was no time for anything else. So he would get up and do 2 hours with her, and then shut down to the world. So now I see him engaging with her, and then still engaging with the world, which is good. So he still has her as a priority. And, I want to say that it's like, when Melissa was talking, your spouse, we need to see that there's growth. Like, you know what I mean? And then a lot of times, some of us don't understand what we're looking at. Do you know what I mean? And I would always say, I'm with Bryan as long as he's still trying.
It kind of rhymes.
It does kind of rhyme. I didn't realize that, but as
Bryan,
long as he's putting forth 100% effort, it wasn't his fault that all these programs didn't work. I just feel like they should be catered more individually.
Right.
And they don't have the manpower to do that.
So, Little Blessings has offered you something as well as the spouse.
Yeah, I was like, you gotta understand, he went to Battle Creek. I didn't go anywhere. So I still have 13 years of emotion that has built up with no outlet. And then I go to the VA, and they just want to tell me what he needs. And they want to tell me, that they're there for him, number one. And you're like, you respect that because they are the veteran and you're not. But you're the one who's getting the collateral damage.
Right.
Whereas, like, Little Blessings is the first place that I could say, even if he stops going, I could still go. Like, are you saying that I'm equal in this? Because I need to feel equal.
Right.
He shuts down for me so much.
Unit.
I need someone to engage with me. I need someone not to shut me down.
And what is Little Blessings? What happens in your sessions? So and it's a family group, right? Family, spouse,
Yeah.
group, yeah.
Well, with me, they show us, which is I think the best part of it, is that they actually allow me to do things that the veteran does, and work with the horses, and like Melissa said, metaphorically deal with what we're dealing with inside with the horses, who I honestly believe are spiritual animals. I feel like that is like the missing link in this world, is like everybody should have their own horse. I need my own horse. I need
Or
it
an
to
animal.
be mine.
An animal of some sort.
You know, or an animal. Like I have dogs, and they're not, I mean, no, don't get me wrong. My dogs are my babies. I mean, but they're not my spirit animal. And I don't think, there was this one moment where I really needed a hug. I needed love, and this horse that had ignored everyone else.
She still talks.
I'm not kidding. It was
There
the
was something that
craziest
happened to her
thing.
inside, you know.
This
Right.
horse turned around all of a sudden, walked straight towards me, and put its head on my head, and then the babies surrounded me, and I knew spiritually
Just
they
at the
were
farm?
connecting to me. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I felt like I was important, and I needed to feel important. I needed to feel loved, and because when they're isolating, you know, it's you. Everybody tells you it's not you. You know, like when you're just talking about this, you're like, well, why doesn't he want to come home? As a wife, you think, well, I'm awesome. I cook for him. I clean for him. I do everything for him. Why does he want to play with the boys and not come home? You know, but then you don't think of it as a therapy. You think, okay, so he's making friends. Well, why aren't I his friend? You know, so it's hard for you to appreciate what he's going through, but not being upset with how you feel. Do you know what I mean? So you have to really be able to do that, and you have to be selfless, because if you can't be selfless, it's really hard to connect to the veteran. Because
You guys have grown so much. Like, so
I'm getting
much.
there.
Yeah.
I used to remember when Bryan started therapy, I got to say this, he'd come home, you're not being mindful. I'm like, what the hell is this mindful?
And being
I
in
don't
the
mean to
That
moment.
was my word.
I hated it. I was like, you're not in the
I didn't
moment.
know
I'm
what
like,
it
I'm
meant. I was like, I'm
standing
learning
right
stuff.
here. And I told Jamie, I said, if I hear this one more time. And then, but yet today, he was talking, and I was like, you are not practicing mindfulness. And it was the first time I've said it to
And
him.
I
so
said,
it's
"You're right."
weird. I said, why are you blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm not going to say that everything's roses, but I am
no.
going to say that we are a progress, and we are making progress. And I feel like he's on a journey right now that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with me. And I'm okay with that, because he needs that. And
You guys are so good at these segues, let me tell you.
I don't know. I'm really trying to, like, just be honest with you.
I don't
like,
even know what a segue means. Like,
The way
one of
she
those
moves
riding
into
things.
something
I
else.
know we're
The
already
way
I knew
she's
he was
moving
going
into
there.
something
We're
Segue.
already an hour and 15 minutes
Okay,
in. That's
we're
how
done.
fast it goes. No, but
Oh,
no,
geez, that
it's,
was
it's
a long time,
fantastic.
man.
It goes really
Whatever it
fast
is.
because
Wow.
it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely, the
Fair
segue
producer
is,
overtime. That's all.
Yeah.
the segue,
Overtime pay kicks in about 6 minutes.
6 minutes?
segue is when her talking about something that makes you happy. And so I want to
I
give you an opportunity to tell the listeners and the
Yes.
viewers what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Oh.
What is your journey?
It's stressing me the heck out, but
Okay,
I'm loving
but-
it. I'm loving it, I'm telling you.
He's really good at it.
What makes me happy
What do you
and
do?
what I realized, I would like to start off by saying that I started playing baseball. And that's why I wore this hat, and I want to shout out to all the Monroe Muskrats because I needed socialization. And that was the first thing that I did, was to call this gentleman up. I reached out to this guy who was in a 45 and older baseball team. They play out at Ned Skeldon Stadium. And I called him up. His
Roy
name,
Hobsley.
that's right. Yeah, Roy Hobsley. So I met him over at Maple Grove and tossed the ball with him, Doug Meisner. And he's like, we'd love to have you play. And I explained everything. I told him, you know, what kind of position I'm in, and that I'm just kind of doing it to strike conversations and actually just to sit next to somebody, because I wouldn't even sit next to people. You know, I just want to be by myself, back against the wall, and just let me look.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
no, it was bad to, like, where I would have to buy, like, when we went to see like my daughter's like Sesame Street on Live, I had to make sure we were in the alcove where he could get out real quick. You know, so he's telling the truth. Like he could not. He didn't like
common.
being claustrophobic.
So this is after so many years of therapy, you know, and I was finally like, I'm ready. So I called this baseball thing because it made me happy. Baseball makes me happy. So I did that, and I I went over to the Veterans of Foreign War in Lambertville, and I volunteered to do honor guard because I wanted to give back. And that's one thing with therapy, even at Little Blessings. And for some reason, they figured it out, you know, that when you give back, it just beats everything. Like all these bad things you have in your head, and you watch somebody, a young kid, giving them a certificate for writing an essay on the United States, and he's got a big smile because you gave him a certificate. It just makes you feel so happy, you know, and doing things for people, and that's kind of what I want to do. You know, I want to concentrate on veterans.
So
what is your? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Am I going off the wall here?
No.
Talk about giving
What
back.
is what is your position? What do you do?
So right now, I was only going there to do honor guard, and the way things are kind of going, I took a commander position. Yeah, I know, just like that, right?
So he went from not talking to anybody to now he's running the show.
From sweeping
That
the
sounds
floors, now he's
straight
running,
like a
right.
military person.
Right, yeah, I know. It honestly wasn't meant to be,
I was like, what are you doing?
but I can't get it out of my head. When I came out of the Marine Corps and I worked at the strip club, and I think, you know, and I was about homeless. I mean, when I met Laura, I didn't have any water. I didn't have any electricity. I mean, I was done. I was about done. I mean, I was done with life, and I was 30 years old. And I was like, I'm just done with everything. So I needed to do something that I think is going to help people. And by what you guys did, you know, I remember when I got out, instead of working at the strip club, I even looked at around horse farms. There was nothing. There was nothing. And if I had a chance to even, I would have slept out in a tent and fed those horses if I could, I think. So I took the commander position to help veterans. That's what I did. And that was the whole purpose of it. And I never knew, I didn't realize what I was diving into. I really didn't. I had my graduation party for high school at the Erie VFW because my grandfather was a POW from World War II. And when he got back from World War II, very decorated, Bronze Star, a couple Purple Hearts, he bought a house 2 doors down or 3 doors down from there. And that's where he raised 12 kids, right next door to the VFW. So it's been in my life, my whole life.
It's destiny.
It's destiny, yeah. So I took the position, and within this couple months I've had the position, I've been nominated and elected to our district junior vice commander. I don't know if you know what that is. That consists of, I got it here, of Lenawee County, Washtenaw County, Monroe County, Oakland County, Macomb County. So it's quite a few, and it's a third in line from being the commander of the district, which I probably will in a couple of years, I would imagine. And the more I dove into it, the more I realized that the Veterans of Foreign War are not a bar. They aren't. And if they are a bar, they're closing them down. They're realizing, like, whoa, wait a second here. They need therapy. They need help. So they've
So your vacation was not a vacation. Your vacation was a conference.
It was. It was a 2-day conference in Boyne Meadows, which I've learned so much about the 22 different programs that they offer from the VFW to high school students and junior high kids and elementary kids, and just giving them money, you know. And this is I saw a good board, and this was kind of interesting. There was a girl. The auxiliary, which is not a man and women's auxiliary anymore, it's the auxiliary. They've changed it. It's changed. They do a program where they offer money for artistic patriotism. So there was a picture of a young girl who was in 9th grade who did a drawing, and she won $500 towards a scholarship from auxiliary. So her sophomore year, she did it again. She won $500 from auxiliary, won $500 from the district, and then won the state, won $1,000. So then her junior year, she did it again. Well, her junior year, she won $500 from the auxiliary, $1,000 from the district, $1,000 from the state. Well, this time it went up to national, and she won $15,000 from national.
Whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
And her
Wow.
and so they had a picture of her, and her total from her high school scholarships was over $18,000. And her picture she drew was in pencil, and it was a young girl looking down at a pond of some kind with her dog, and the reflection was a veteran in combat fatigue staring up at her. But it was so awesome. But what I'm saying is, the Veterans of Foreign War gave this young girl over $18,000 for scholarship money.
Right. It's awesome.
And that's what he wants to do. Is he
And
wants
that's what I wanna do.
He wants to like notify our community
Yeah.
of the things that they can earn, like simple things like putting up a flag in your yard,
Right.
you know, or in your business on your on your wall.
I can give
things
you a
like
couple
that.
good stories that I've it's helped me in therapy as well.
Do we have time?
Part of the things that the commander has in the VFW supplies are certificates for the community. Firefighters, police officers, radio stations, newspapers, everything you can think of, and even citizens that display the American flag, that fly the American flag.
Yeah.
So I ordered a bunch of these, on my own, and anybody that I would see fly a flag, I would go up to their house, and I would give them. I went to the dollar store and bought some, frames, and put them in the frames. I could get stuff from the VFW store that I've now realized, but at that time I didn't.
Right.
We're learning.
Well, yeah, I'm learning. But so I'd give these certificates to these people, and one gentleman I gave it to, he had an American flag and a Marine Corps flag there. And I walked up there, and they're thinking some salesman, and
Right.
I'm standing there, and hello, can I help you?
Yeah.
I tell them who I am, the commander of the Veterans of Foreign War in Lambertville, Post 9656, and that I go past her quite a bit, and I notice your Marine Corps flag and American flag flying all the time, and I just wanted to present you with this certificate saying thank you.
Right.
Thank you for being who you are and flying the flags.
Recognizing us, right.
And he just about cried,
Right.
and he said, can you hang on a second? I'm like, okay. And he left and came back and with this huge Eagle Globe and anchor that was in steel that someone made for him. And he said that this Eagle Globe and anchor stands on his living room wall, and the certificate is going to be right below it. And that he was just having problems. He just got out of the hospital 2 days prior, and he was having personal problems. And this actually made his week.
Right.
And there's stuff like that you just don't realize until you go up to the door.
Right.
And without little blessings, Brian wouldn't be going up to any doors.
I wouldn't.
So there's the segment there.
Yeah, right.
He'd have his back
I get caught up on the VFW.
He'd have his back to the wall.
Because I did want to mention a
Right
few
there.
programs that's
Yeah.
going on with the VFW.
Yes, please.
Okay, and
Yeah.
it's they have, like I said, 22 different programs, quite a few, but the ones that are coming, I guess, due to our post, and most recently October 31st, so it's coming up in a couple weeks. I want to talk.
That's
about.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Halloween. And I've talked to a reporter, and I believe it's in the Monroe Evening News this week, and I've put up some forms at Forest View Lanes. But what it is, it's one of them is called the Patriots Pen. It's for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. It's a 300 to 400 word essay that's on a theme that's by the National Commander-in-Chief that's picked different each year. This year's theme was, what does patriotism mean to me? You can get on the VFW.org website and write a 300-word essay, and we'll honor your child at our VFW with a certificate, and we have medals that we can give to them. And if they can make it up through the district level, the state level, all the way up to national level, they can win up to, I believe for the middle age, it's $5,000, right? And then you can go up to the high school level, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, and we do what's called the Voice of Democracy. This is the same type of thing, but we add a little bit more to it. We make them record themselves, so they have a little recording. They can hear
the voice
themselves.
of democracy.
The Voice of Democracy. They also, and we have rules, no background noises, and they're very strict about that.
Yeah.
They want
Follow
you to
the rules.
follow the rules and do them right. That one is the same thing. We have medals for all the kids and certificates.
So where would they find this at?
You can find it on vfw.org.
Or call Bryan if you know him, or get a hold of us.
Yeah,
Right.
we'll definitely get all the links out there
Yeah.
posted for sure.
and the VFW, and that one goes up to the district level, the state level, and the national level, which is, I believe, $30,000 for first place.
Wow.
So I just want to say something. So people are out there watching, right? Are probably thinking, okay, so why is the VFW
I know.
doing this for kids, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
What is the importance of teaching these kids this, right?
it's the importance of teaching them the patriotism and how important it is that they've had uncles and brothers and sisters who fought for that flag, and they need to know the meaning behind the flag. We have all kinds of classes that we have for little kids, and explaining the reasoning behind the red and the white and the stripe
Sure.
and the stars, and the VFW has all that stuff, and that's our
Yeah.
concentration.
Yep.
To take care of our veterans, our families, our community, and they're really getting away from the bar scene.
Oh, we know.
And I think you can see that.
You're doing such a great job,
Yes.
Brian.
Oh,
And I know
it
it
makes
is
me
stressful.
happy.
I know
Makes
it
me
does,
happy.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're
and
proud
I know
of
it
you.
is stressful, but it is great. And I know you and I've talked about that, like knowing
we've
when those
gone
key
into
points,
it,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And
You helped
you're-
me out quite a bit.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Yeah.
You're doing amazing things within the community. Tons and
Oh, I
tons of
love
growth between the two of you guys. Melissa, you have been, and I don't want to end this. We could go forever,
gotta
right?
end?
I know.
Andy, wake up, Andy.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
we gotta.
I'm so,
I know.
1 minute till my
All
overtime
right.
kicks in.
Oh, that was 6 minutes ago.
Yeah,
We're
but
taking you
A
to dinner.
closing
yeah,
argument.
we yes. Do you have a closing argument?
I thought we all had. I
Argument.
just wanted
Closing
statement.
a closing statement. That's what I mean.
Statement.
I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Non-confrontational here, boy.
What do we want to say?
I wanted to say to all the veterans that are my age and just getting out in the 30s and 40s, and and you don't need to wait and figure things out. How unfortunately what the Vietnam veterans had to do, they had to figure it out for themselves and figure out how to act and do everything. If you're feeling bad and you're feeling that anger and you're feeling like you don't want to be around anybody, go talk to somebody, because that's all it is. And I know it's really, really, really hard to talk about your crap, but there's somebody there that's been there, if not done more, or can relate in somehow, and they can teach you about giving. And I want to say that the veterans of foreign war, whether it be in Lambertville, in Monroe, post 1138, in Carlton, Dundee, we're here for all veterans, whether they're veterans of foreign war or not. We're going to be here for all veterans, all their families, and their communities all the time. And the motto that the national website has, that no one does more for veterans, and I really believe that.
That's awesome.
That's right. And if you're not a member, that's fine. You can still come in and talk to someone.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a member to get a friend.
Yeah.
Like it,
Don't think that you can't go in these VFWs
Right.
because you're not a member.
Right.
Just going
I
there to have a
understand
drink, right.
that's the way it was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
They're
We want you there.
changing with the times, and the
Yeah.
times
We're
are
trying
we're
to.
here to help, and we don't want to do what we've done before.
I like the
And,
fact that you're
yeah.
with the children and what you just said there
Yeah.
about the incentives that you're giving them and the programs.
And there's
because
many more.
that's it.
There's
Yeah.
many
There's a
more.
lot.
Like I
Oh,
said, there's
absolutely.
22 of them. I mentioned 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome.
Well, thanks.
Because we have,
Thank you so much, Melissa.
you.
You got any last words of wisdom for anybody?
Just to piggyback on what he said, there is people that do want to listen. Don't focus on the ones that don't.
We
Yeah.
will listen,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
We will.
We at this table.
Yeah.
We're all
Pick
for
one of
here.
us,
If
right?
you're if you're a spouse of
Yeah.
a
Humble
if you're
yourself.
a spouse of a veteran and you need to reach out, reach out.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
love to speak to someone. I can't tell you how much it means to me to know that someone else understood me.
Yeah.
Just to be understood is
well, you
it's a
have to
gift.
ask
Yeah,
too.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Closed mouth don't get fed, and if
Right.
you don't reach out, that's the saddest part.
Yeah.
Especially,
Yeah.
You have to reach out.
military are very proud, and they don't want to ask for
hard.
help, and
Yeah.
it
It's
is.
hard.
And they have to understand that it's
It's okay.
it's okay.
It's okay
Absolutely.
to be.
Yeah.
It's okay to be,
Absolutely.
ask for help. I was
Yep.
a Marine,
Yeah.
man. I understand the crap.
And yeah,
I
show
have
up.
my blood
Just
stripe.
Show up to Duke Farms, just to show
Yeah.
up
For you
know.
Marines, blood stripe.
Well, you guys, thank you so much, and thank you so much for our viewers. We really
Yes.
appreciate all of your support.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you next week. Same time, same channel.